Green MP Caroline Lucas has called for an all-female emergency cabinet, she says, to sort out the Brexit crisis. And she says that women can bring a different perspective to crisis. And you were one of the women that she reached out to on this.
Yeah.
Have you responded yet?
I have. I'm happy to work with anybody, male or female, I have to say, to try to stop Brexit, and in particular to try to avoid a no-deal Brexit, which I think would be really, really damaging. I'm all for more women in politics. I think we can bring a different perspective. But I do feel duty-bound to point out that the former Prime Minister, of course, was a woman and didn't manage to sort out Brexit. So there's maybe a flaw in that argument somewhere. But yeah, Caroline, I'm a big fan of Caroline's. I think she's a fantastic MP, so I'm more than happy to band together with a bunch of other women to see if we can bring...
See, what you said about Theresa May, actually, a solid quote. You said, having conversations with Theresa May was pretty soul-destroying and torturous.
Did I say that?
Pretty strong. Pretty strong.
I should say she would probably say the same about me, so let's be fair about it. Theresa May, and I think people could see this in her public persona, she was very, very scripted. So when you were talking to her in private, it was the same approach she took. She very rarely departed from the script. In front of her now, fair play to her, that's how she wanted to do business. But it could be really difficult and frustrating if you were trying to get into a discussion about how we, notwithstanding the big differences between us, might try to find some common ground.
You're
so
all for a Christmas card
women
list,
make
anyway.
better politicians?
I think there are some good women politicians, but, you know, you can have bad women politicians as well, obviously. But I think women bring a different perspective. I'm generalising here. It's not absolutely true all of the time. But I think women can be a bit more empathetic. They can be more willing to listen.
Or less tribal.
And less... It doesn't always work that way. My political opponents might say that that's not the case all the time with me. But, yeah, I think women do bring a different approach to politics. And if we have more women, and we're seeing more women in politics now, then it might change the overall tone.
Do you think there should be more women, though? Because they have all women shortlists, and to me, I just find that it's discrimination against men. It's the same thing, isn't it?
I think they'll cope. I think the men will probably cope.
Yeah, but
they've kind of had it good for quite a long time.
It's not their fault that there aren't a lot of women politicians, is it really?
Well, nor is it women's fault. You see, this argument, the argument you're making, which, you know, is one I hear a lot, that let's do it on merit. Well, if we accept as a starting point that women are as good as men, as intelligent as men, I think we probably agreed that, then why is it that we see fewer women, not just in the upper reaches of politics, but in all walks of life? There must be something systemic that is holding women back. So let's level the playing field for women.
I'm fascinated, in a way, by your story, because you joined the SNP when you were 16, and your mum, actually, who was a young mum in your case, she was a councillor for the SNP. So...
Much later,
Much later.
Not
so what made you want to be a politician at 16?
I don't think I did want to be a politician at 16. I never, ever, at that point, thought I'm going to be an MP. There was no Scottish Parliament then, so being First Minister, there was no post of First Minister. I was just really interested in the world around me, trying to make a difference, all the things that bring most people into politics. But the thought of a political career came much, much later than that, although I was still relatively young at that point. But I think it's fair to say most of my classmates thought I was a bit weird.
At that young age, did you ever... I mean, did you ever imagine that one day you might be in the position you're in now, which is...
No, not really. Not really. Well, as I said a moment ago, when I was 16, there was no such thing as First Minister. Scotland didn't have our own parliament back then. For somebody who joined the SNP, it was very unlikely you would ever be elected to the House of Commons. I mean, not these days, but back then it wasn't something that could be taken for granted. So for me then, politics was about trying to make a difference and be active and take part in that way. It wasn't until later that I had any prospect of actually...
Do you ever look in the mirror, though, and think, how did I ever get here?
Almost every morning when I get out of bed.
But you're still trying to make massive changes, aren't you? I mean,
absolutely.
You know, it's no secret that you would love Scotland to be independent, and that's your main mission, isn't it?
Yeah, because, I mean, if you take what's happening right now, Scotland, we voted against Brexit, and yet we face being ripped out of the European Union. Independence, it's not a rejection of people in England, it's just about resetting that relationship so that it is one of equals, where we can't be forced down paths we don't want to go down. We become like other countries. We're independent. We work together with other countries, but we are in charge of our own decisions.
Why are you so against Great Britain being independent of the European Union then? Because you want to stop Brexit, but you want to be independent from the UK.
I think the two things are very different. I mean, if you look at the European Union, every single member country in the European Union is an independent country. Many decisions are taken on the basis of unanimity, so countries have vetoes, others on qualified majority. So look at Ireland just now, a small country, but it's got enormous clout in Europe. Contrast that with the position Scotland's in. We're kind of being told we have to leave the European Union no matter what we want. So it's about
because
equality.
you're part of the country, though.
Exactly,
and
but
all those you do have your own parliament, but the decisions are made. The decision was made by the public, and it was a national referendum. And
you sort of are making my... Well, the Remainers won in Scotland. You're kind of making my point.
They won in London too, but so what does that mean?
Well, London, I'm a great fan of the great city of London that we're in just now, but it's not a country in the way that Scotland is. And you kind of make the point, if the argument for Scotland remaining within the current system is, well, you just have to accept being outvoted all the time.
Do you know what I want to ask you, going away from politics a bit? I mean, politics are stressful. I don't care who you are, what you are, it's stressful. How do you de-stress, or who de-stresses you?
Well...
Have another wee sip.
It's a daytime show. I think I will maybe go... I love reading, so I like reading books. That's a safe answer in this context.
What about Peter, your husband?
Yeah, he can de-stress me from time to time.
Well, obviously, you're both in politics. I'm trying to help. So you must have times where it must be really difficult to have evenings where it's just the two of you, a man and woman, man, wife, not talking work. How do you do that? What do you
It's not
talk
as difficult as you think. I mean, we're both in politics. He works in the sort of back room of the SNP. We don't spend our working days together, so we're very rarely physically together during the working week.
And he cooks.
So often well, I don't cook.
Hey, now we got to...
Can't
that
cook,
de-stresses,
don't cook.
doesn't it?
So he cooks, he de-stresses, I read books, and we just find ways of not talking about politics all the time. And sometimes it's harder than at other times, but actually it's not as hard as you might think it is.
As Andrea said, it's the two of you when you go home. Do you feel that you were judged as a woman for not having any children?
Judged from time to time, yes, but constantly asked about it. It almost, for a period of my life, almost every interview I did, I got asked that question.
Yeah.
Why don't you have children? Might you have children? And it's OK for a while in your 20s, 30s, but later on it becomes, I think, a bit more intrusive. And I went public about the fact I had a miscarriage some years ago, and that was in part about trying to play a small part in removing the taboo and stigma around miscarriage, but also it was a way of, I suppose, me trying to stop getting asked that question all of the time. Because in truth, there's lots of reasons why women don't have children. Some women can't, some people choose not to. So, it's a bit... And women in politics without children, I think Theresa May probably got asked this question a lot as well. And yet men in politics who don't have children, I think very rarely get asked the same question.